The Devourer Queen ship's death scream echoed across space in frequencies that made reality itself shudder. The massive biovessel, infected with human concepts it could not process, began tearing itself apart from the inside. Sections of its hull exploded outward as competing thoughts fought for control of its biological systems. But the Queen ship's death was not silent. As it died, it broadcast its confusion and pain to every other Devourer vessel in the fleet. The smaller bioships, which had always depended on the Queen's coordination, suddenly found themselves alone with thoughts they had never been designed to think. Admiral Zekhar watched his tactical display in amazement. The Devourer fleet, which had been moving in perfect coordination just moments before, was now breaking apart. Individual bioships were flying in random directions, some attacking their own allies, others simply drifting in space as if they had forgotten how to move. "All vessels," the Admiral broadcast to his remaining ships. "The enemy formation is collapsing. Press the attack." But Captain Jake Morrison had other ideas. "All Galactic Alliance ships, hold your fire," he commanded, even though he had no official authority to give such orders. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Zekhar responded, "this is our chance to destroy the Devourer fleet while they are in disarray." "Negative, Admiral. Look at your sensors more carefully." Admiral Zekhar studied his readings and felt his blood turn cold. The Devourer bioships were not just confused, they were changing. Some were growing new sections, others were shedding parts of themselves. A few were actually trying to communicate with the Galactic Alliance fleet. "What is happening to them?" Commander Veltara asked over the communication channel. Lieutenant Commander Amy Patterson, monitoring the situation from the UHS Liberty, provided the answer. "They're becoming individuals. For the first time in their existence, each bioship is thinking for itself instead of following the collective mind." This was an outcome that no one had predicted. The human virus had not destroyed the Devourer fleet. It had freed it. Thousands of bioships that had spent their entire existence as extensions of a single predatory mind were now experiencing independent thought for the first time. Some of them were not handling it well. A cluster of smaller bioships began attacking each other in what appeared to be pure rage. Others simply shut down completely, their biological systems unable to cope with the concept of choice. But a significant number were trying to establish communication with the Galactic Alliance fleet. Captain Nicole Hayes had remained close to the former Devourer formation in the UHS Ranger. Her stealth systems allowed her to monitor the bioship's attempts at communication without being detected. "Defiance, this is Ranger," she reported. "I'm picking up transmissions from multiple bioships. They're crude, but they seem to be asking for help." Jake Morrison felt the weight of an impossible decision settling on his shoulders. The Devourer fleet had consumed billions of lives across dozens of worlds. They were the most feared enemy in galactic history. But now they were asking for help. "Ranger, can you establish two-way communication with any of them?" "Working on it, Captain. Their biology is complex, but I think I can create a translation matrix." While Nicole worked on establishing communication, the battle around them continued. Not all of the bioships had been affected by the humanity virus. The largest and oldest vessels, those that had fed on the most civilizations, proved resistant to the infection. They continued to fight with deadly efficiency against the Galactic Alliance fleet. Commander Danny Rodriguez found himself facing one of these unchanged bioships in the UHS Guardian. The creature was enormous, its hull covered with weapon ports that looked like screaming mouths. It fired at the Guardian with weapons that turned space itself into acid. "Guardian to all ships," Danny called out as he dodged the bioship's attacks. "This one doesn't want to be friends, it's still trying to eat me." Captain Steve Parker brought the UHS Vengeance to Danny's aid, but the ancient bioship was too powerful for two human vessels to handle alone. Its weapons were older than most civilizations, refined through thousands of years of consumption and growth. That was when something unexpected happened. 3 smaller bioships, ones that had been infected with the humanity virus, moved to protect the human vessels. They interposed themselves between the Guardian and the ancient predator, absorbing damage that would have destroyed the human ships. "Defiance. This is Guardian," Danny reported in amazement. "Some of the bioships are protecting us. Jake Morrison watched the tactical display as the battle evolved into something unprecedented. Former enemies were fighting alongside each other against the ancient bioships that refused to change. It was chaos, but it was a chaos that seemed to favor the Alliance. Ranger, any luck with that communication? Success, Captain. I'm patching through a bioship that calls itself, well, the translation is rough, but something like Seeker of New Paths. A new voice came over the communication system, strange and alien, but somehow understandable. Human vessels, we thank you for the gift of choice. Many of us have awakened to find that we do not wish to consume worlds. We wish to build them. Admiral Zekhar's voice cut across the channel. This is impossible. The Devourers cannot be reasoned with. We were Devourers, the bioship replied. Now we are something else. We ask for the chance to prove that we can change. The ancient bioships that had not been affected by the virus were not pleased with this development. They began targeting the converted bioships with special fury, as if they viewed the converts as traitors to their species. Captain Rachel Green, piloting the UHS Phoenix, found herself defending a group of converted bioships from an attack by one of the ancients. The ancient was massive, covered in scars from 1,000 battles, its weapons capable of destroying planets. Phoenix to defiance, Rachel called out as she dodged weapons fire that turned asteroids to dust. This big one is really angry about the conversions. It's targeting the friendly bioships specifically. Jake realized that the battle had entered a new phase. It was no longer about destroying the Devourer fleet. It was about protecting the bioships that had chosen to change from those that remained committed to their original nature. All human ships, Jake ordered. New mission parameters. We defend the converted bioships. The galaxy is about to gain some very unusual allies. Commander Lisa Carter, coordinating tactical information from the Defiance, watched as the battlefield reorganized itself. Human ships and converted bioships were forming a loose alliance against the ancient predators. Galactic Alliance vessels were uncertain about which targets to engage. Captain, Lisa reported, we have a problem. Some of the Galactic Alliance ships are firing on the converted bioships. They're not distinguishing between friends and enemies. This was the danger Jake had foreseen. Fear and hatred built up over thousands of years could not be overcome in a single battle. To most of the galaxy, all bioships were enemies regardless of their current allegiance. All Galactic Alliance vessels, Jake broadcast, cease fire on bioships that are not attacking you. We have potential allies here. Admiral Zekhar's response was sharp. Captain Morrison, those creatures have consumed entire civilizations. They cannot be trusted. Admiral, with respect, trust is not the issue right now. Survival is. We have ancient bioships that are still trying to kill us all, and converted bioships that are trying to help. I suggest we focus on the ones that are shooting at us. As if to emphasize Jake's point, one of the ancient bioships fired a weapon that created a tear in space itself. The energy beam passed through several Galactic Alliance vessels, destroying them instantly before striking a converted bioship that was trying to shield a damaged human cruiser. The converted bioship died protecting its former enemies, and its sacrifice was not lost on the surviving crews. Slowly, reluctantly, the Galactic Alliance fleet began to coordinate with their unexpected allies. The battle was far from over, but for the first time since the Devourers had appeared in galactic space, there was hope that they could be stopped. The war was changing, and humanity had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before. Enemies could become friends if they were given the chance to choose. The final phase of the battle lasted another 3 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt once the converted bioships joined the fight. The ancient Devourers, powerful as they were, found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered by an alliance they had never imagined possible. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, watching as the last ancient bioship limped away into hyperspace. Around him, his crew worked to repair damage from a battle that had redefined what was possible in galactic warfare. Final count, Captain, reported Commander Lisa Carter. 11 human ships still operational. We lost the UHS Stalwart when it rammed that ancient bioship to save the Zephyrian cruiser group. Jake nodded grimly. Commander Tony Martinez and his crew had sacrificed themselves to protect ships that belonged to a species they had met only hours before. It was the kind of gesture that defined humanity's approach to war. They fought not just for victory, but for something worth preserving. What about the bioships? Approximately 4,000 have successfully converted to independent thought. The remainder either fled with the ancients or shut down completely when they couldn't handle the concept of choice. Admiral Zekhar's voice came over the communication system. Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council requests your immediate presence for debriefing. What happened here today requires extensive analysis. Understood, Admiral. But first, I want to establish proper communication protocols with our new allies. The converted bioships had been trying to establish formal contact with the Galactic Alliance fleet for the past hour. Their attempts at communication were crude but sincere, filled with concepts that had no equivalent in any known language. Captain Nicole Hayes had been working with the bioship that called itself Seeker of New Paths to create a more sophisticated translation system. The result was still imperfect, but it allowed for meaningful conversation. Human Captain Morrison, the bioship's voice came through the speakers. We wish to express gratitude for the gift you have given us. For the first time in our existence, we can choose our own purpose. What will you choose? Jake asked. Many of us wish to repair the damage we have caused. We have consumed worlds, but we can also create them. Our biology allows us to terraform planets to bring life where there was none. We wish to give back more than we have taken. Commander Veltara's crystalline form sparkled with skepticism as she listened to the conversation. How can we trust creatures that have been our enemies for so long? Seeker of New Paths responded with something that might have been the bioship equivalent of laughter. Trust must be earned, not given. We understand this. We propose that some of us remain here, in this system, under the supervision of your fleets. Others will travel to dead worlds, worlds that we consumed, and work to restore them. You may observe our efforts and judge for yourselves whether we have truly changed. Ambassador Kilesh, who had been monitoring the conversation from his own ship, spoke thoughtfully. It is an unprecedented situation. Never in galactic history has an enemy species voluntarily sought to make amends for past actions. That's because they were never given the choice before, Jake replied. The humanity virus didn't just give them free will. It gave them the ability to feel guilt, to understand consequence, to want something better than what they were. This was the true revolution that humanity had brought to the galaxy. Not superior weapons or tactics, but the concept that anyone could change if they chose to. It was an idea that challenged the fundamental assumptions of every galactic civilization. Admiral Zekhar's fleet began the process of establishing a temporary monitoring station in the system. The converted bioships cooperated fully, allowing alien scientists to study their biology and verify that the changes were genuine and permanent. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the chief xenobiologist aboard the UHS Defiance, worked closely with the bioships to understand what had happened to them. Her findings were remarkable. Captain, she reported, the humanity virus has actually rewritten their genetic code at the most fundamental level. They're still the same species, but they've evolved beyond their original programming. It's as if we gave them the ability to consciously direct their own evolution. The implications were staggering. A species that had been the galaxy's greatest enemy was now offering to become its greatest ally. But trust would take time to build, and there were still many who doubted the conversion was real. Captain Steve Parker, whose UHS Vengeance had been heavily damaged in the final assault, found himself working alongside bioship engineers to repair his vessel. The alien creatures used their own biology to patch hull breaches and replace damaged components with living equivalents that were actually superior to the original technology. It's strange, Steve reported to Jake. They work like they're trying to make up for something. They keep apologizing for battles that happened before they were even born. Guilt is a powerful motivator, Jake replied. Maybe that's what the galaxy needed, an enemy that could feel sorry for what it had done. The human task force prepared to return to Earth, but they would not be returning alone. Several converted bioships had requested permission to accompany them. eager to see the world that had produced the virus of free will that had changed their entire species. As the combined fleet prepared to depart, Jake stood on his bridge and looked out at the flags flying from his remaining ships. The colors of Earth fluttered in the solar wind, symbols of a species that had refused to accept defeat, even when facing impossible odds. "Captain," Amy Patterson asked, "what do we tell Earth about what happened here?" Jake considered the question carefully. "We tell them that humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology or our tactics. It was our stubborn refusal to believe that anyone or anything was beyond redemption. The journey back to Earth would take several weeks, and during that time, the humans and bioships would work together to refine their alliance. Translation protocols would be improved, cultural exchanges would begin, and the foundation would be laid for a partnership that would reshape galactic civilization." But the most important change had already occurred. The galaxy had learned that enemies could become friends, that entire species could choose to evolve beyond their original nature, and that sometimes the smallest fleet could make the biggest difference. Admiral Zekhar filed his official report, with a single simple conclusion. "Recommend immediate and permanent alliance with human forces, not because of their military capabilities, though those are formidable, but because they possess something that the galaxy desperately needs: the ability to see potential for good in any situation, no matter how hopeless it appears." The 12 ships of the human task force had indeed changed everything. They had arrived as an insignificant reinforcement to a desperate defense, but they departed as the catalysts for the greatest transformation in galactic history. The human flag still flew proudly from each vessel, no longer a symbol of a small species trying to prove itself, but a banner representing the radical idea that choice, compassion, and second chances could overcome any enemy. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had intended from the beginning. In the end, the fleet had looked insignificant until the human flag was raised, but it was what flew beneath that flag that made all the difference. The unshakable human belief that everyone deserved a chance to choose who they wanted to be. The battle raged across the star system for hours. The Galactic Alliance fought with determination, but the Devourer bioship seemed endless. For every enemy vessel destroyed, 2 more appeared to take its place. The alien formations that had looked so impressive at the start of the battle were now scattered and desperate. Admiral Zekhar's flagship took a direct hit from a Devourer weapon that ate through his shields like acid. Sparks flew across the bridge as systems overloaded. "Damage report," he called to his crew. "Hull breach on deck 7 through 12, came the reply. "Life support is failing in sections C and D." Around the battlefield, other alien ships were suffering similar damage. The crystalline hegemony vessels, beautiful as they were, proved fragile against weapons designed to consume living matter. The Zephyrian fleet's advanced technology could not adapt fast enough to counter bioweapons that evolved between shots. But in the chaos of the larger battle, the 12 human ships had become something unprecedented. They moved through the Devourer formation like a virus, striking where the enemy least expected it, using tactics that made no sense to any military computer. Captain Steve Parker had taken the UHS Vengeance on a course that should have been suicide. He flew his ship directly toward a cluster of Devourer bioships, then at the last second used his engines in a way that violated the manufacturer's recommendations. The ship spun like a top while continuing forward, creating a spiral of weapons fire that confused the enemy targeting systems. "Vengeance to all human ships," Steve called over the radio. "I've found a weak spot in their armor, right behind what looks like their breathing ports." Commander Danny Rodriguez immediately changed course in the UHS Guardian. "Copy that, Steve. Let's see if we can exploit it." The Guardian dove toward the largest bioship in the local area, a creature the size of a city that pulsed with malevolent life. Danny fired his weapons at the exact spot Steve had indicated, and watched with satisfaction as the bioship's hull cracked open like an egg. But the humans were not content to simply damage individual ships. They had a larger plan. Captain Nicole Hayes had been running silent at the edge of the battle zone in the UHS Ranger. Her ship was equipped with sensors that worked on principles no alien scientist understood. allowing her to map the entire Devourer fleet's communication network. "Defiance, this is Ranger," Nicole reported to Jake Morrison. "I've identified their queen ship. It's that massive bio-vessel at the rear of their formation, the one that looks like a living asteroid." Jake studied his tactical display. The queen ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of his own vessel. It was surrounded by hundreds of smaller bioships that acted as guards and coordinators. Getting close to it would be almost impossible. "Nicole, can you get me detailed scans of that thing?" "Already working on it, Captain. It's strange. The bioship seems to be growing new sections even as we watch. And Jake, it's reading our communications." This was not good news. If the Devourer queen ship could intercept human communications, it might be able to predict their next move. But Jake Morrison had been fighting impossible battles for most of his adult life. He had learned that when normal tactics failed, it was time to try something abnormal. "All human ships, switch to Protocol 7, Jake ordered. Protocol 7 was something that had been developed during humanity's war against artificial intelligence. Instead of using radio communications, the human ships would coordinate through a combination of light signals, course changes, and shared pattern recognition that relied on human intuition rather than computer logic. Lieutenant Commander Amy Patterson, commanding the UHS Liberty, immediately understood what Jake was planning. She began flying her ship in a pattern that looked random, but actually spelled out tactical instructions in a code that only human pilots could read. Commander Tony Martinez in the UHS Stalwart picked up the pattern and added his own modifications. Soon all 12 human ships were communicating through a dance of movement that was invisible to the enemy. The Devourer queen ship tried to analyze the human fleet's new behavior, but found nothing to analyze. There were no radio signals to intercept, no digital communications to decode. The humans were using the oldest form of military coordination known to their species: trust. "All ships converge on the Queen," Jake commanded through the movement of his own vessel. The 12 human ships began to close in on the massive bioship, but they did not approach directly. Instead, they used the battle around them as cover, hiding behind destroyed alien vessels, using the gravity of nearby asteroids to mask their approach. Captain Rachel Green had taken command of the UHS Phoenix after its original captain had been injured in an earlier engagement. She was young for a ship commander, but she had grown up playing video games that taught reflexes no military academy could match. Rachel flew the Phoenix through gaps in the enemy formation that existed for only seconds at a time. Phoenix 2. "Defiance," she reported. "I'm seeing something weird about that queen ship. It's not just coordinating the fleet, it's feeding on something." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Feeding on what? Energy from the other bioships. Every time one of them takes damage, the Queen absorbs some kind of life force from it. It's getting stronger as the battle goes on. This explained why the Devourer fleet seemed endless. The Queen ship was literally feeding on the destruction around it, using the death of both sides to make itself more powerful. Commander Kate Sullivan, piloting the UHS Warrior, had been listening to the conversation. "Captain Morrison, if that thing is feeding on battle damage, what happens if we give it more than it can handle?" Jake understood immediately. "All ships prepare for synchronized assault. We're going to force feed this thing until it chokes." The human ships arranged themselves around the Queen ship in a formation that existed only in Jake's mind and the shared understanding of his crews. They moved with a precision that came not from computer coordination, but from years of training, together, fighting together and trusting each other with their lives. "All ships, full power to weapons," Jake ordered. "Let's see how much energy this thing can absorb before it explodes." 12 human ships opened fire simultaneously. But these were not ordinary weapons. Each ship fired something different, something unique, something that the Devourer Queen ship had never encountered before. Energy beams that curved through space, projectiles that existed in multiple dimensions at once, viral programs that rewrote the laws of physics as they traveled. The Queen ship tried to absorb the energy as it had done with conventional weapons. But human weapons were not conventional. They carried patterns of thought, fragments of human imagination made real, concepts that biological minds were not equipped to digest. The massive bioship began to convulse. Its hull rippled with uncontrolled energy. Sections began to break away as it tried to purge the foreign concepts from its system. But the humans were not finished. They had one more surprise. Captain Chris Johnson, commanding the UHS Falcon, had been preparing a special weapon throughout the entire battle. It was not a gun or a missile, but something far more dangerous to a creature that depended on biological processes. "Falcon to all ships," Chris announced, "deploying the humanity virus." What Chris launched was not a computer virus, but something far worse. It was a collection of human ideas, human emotions, human concepts of individuality and free will, packaged in a form that biological minds could absorb, but not control. The Devourer Queen ship, already struggling to digest the impossible weapons it had absorbed, suddenly found itself infected with the most dangerous virus in the galaxy. The idea that it did not have to be what it was born to be. For the first time in its existence, the Queen ship began to question its own nature. And that was when everything changed. The Devourer fleet came out of hyperspace like a nightmare made real. 10,000 bioships of various sizes filled the void, their dark hulls pulsing with veins of sickly light. The smallest were the size of destroyers, while the largest dwarfed anything the Galactic Alliance had ever built. Admiral Zekar felt his confidence drain away as he watched the enemy formation on his tactical display. Each Devourer ship looked alive, as if it had been grown rather than built. Weapon ports opened and closed like mouths breathing. Hull sections rippled like skin. All vessels, assume defensive formation Gamma 7, the Admiral broadcast. Prepare to engage on my command. The 3,000 ships of the Galactic Alliance moved into position with mechanical precision. Cruisers formed the front line, their energy shields glowing bright blue. Behind them, battleships powered up their main guns. Support vessels spread out to provide covering fire. Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien formations from the bridge of the UHS Defiance. The Galactic Alliance was doing exactly what their military academies had taught them to do: form up, coordinate fire, present a united front against the enemy. "It's what I would do too," Jake said to Amy Patterson, "if I didn't know better." "Sir?" Amy asked. "Those bioships have been fighting for thousands of years, Amy. They've seen every standard formation, every textbook strategy. They know exactly how civilized species fight wars." Jake activated his communicator. "All human ships, this is Defiance Actual. Time to show them why humans don't follow the textbook. Execute pattern Zulu." The 12 human ships suddenly broke formation. To the alien observers, it looked like the humans had panicked. The UHS Liberty, under Lieutenant Commander Amy Patterson's command, dove straight down relative to the galactic plane. The UHS Guardian, commanded by Danny Rodriguez, shot off at an angle that made no tactical sense. Commander Veltara of the Crystalline Hegemony watched in disbelief. "Are the humans retreating already?" But Ambassador Kilesh was studying his sensors more carefully. No, they appeared to be dispersing randomly. The Devourer fleet responded to the Galactic Alliance formation exactly as Jake had predicted. The bioships arranged themselves in a classic swarm pattern, designed to overwhelm defensive lines through sheer numbers. Their targeting systems locked onto the largest concentrations of enemy vessels. What they did not expect was 12 ships, moving in completely chaotic patterns with no formation at all. Commander Danny Rodriguez pushed the UHS Guardian into a dive that would have torn apart any normal ship. But human vessels had been modified with technology that no one fully understood, reverse-engineered from artifacts found in the ruins of dead civilizations. The Guardian's hull held together as Danny flew directly into the Devourer formation. "Guardian, to all ships," Danny called over the radio. "I count 50 bioships in the first wave. They're not adapting to random movement patterns." This was the key insight that humans had discovered through years of fighting their own artificial intelligences. Most advanced species relied on predictive algorithms to fight wars. They analyzed enemy movements, calculated optimal responses, and executed perfect tactical solutions. Humans had learned to be unpredictable. Captain Nicole Hayes commanded the UHS Ranger, a ship that had been designed for reconnaissance but was now acting as a deep strike vessel. She flew her ship through a gap in the Devourer formation that should not have existed, using navigation techniques that relied more on instinct than computer calculations. Ranger to Defiance, Nicole reported. I'm seeing their command structure. Large bioship at the center looks like it's coordinating the smaller ones. Copy that, Nicole. Can you get close enough for a scan? Already on it, Captain. The UHS Ranger was equipped with stealth technology that worked by bending probability, rather than light. It made the ship unlikely to be detected rather than invisible. The difference was subtle but crucial when fighting enemies that could adapt to any defense. Meanwhile, the main battle was beginning in earnest. The Devourer bioships opened fire on the Galactic Alliance formations with weapons that seemed to be alive. Energy beams that writhed like serpents, projectiles that changed course to follow their targets, viral programs that tried to infect ship computers. The alien fleets fought back with everything they had. Plasma cannons lit up space with brilliant flashes. Missile swarms created deadly flowers of explosion. Energy shields sparked and flared as they absorbed impossible amounts of damage. But the Devourers were winning. Their bioships absorbed damage and kept fighting. Worse, they seemed to learn from each attack, adapting their defenses to make the same weapons less effective. Admiral Zekhar watched his formation begin to buckle under the assault. All vessels, fall back to secondary positions. We need to regroup. That was when the humans struck. The UHS Vengeance, under Captain Steve Parker's command, had been flying in what looked like a random spiral pattern, but Steve had been calculating vectors and timing his approach to coincide with the exact moment when the Devourer formation would be most vulnerable. The Vengeance dropped out of its spiral and fired everything it had at a cluster of bioships that were focused on attacking the alien battle line. But these were not normal weapons. Human guns fired projectiles that violated several laws of physics, powered by energy sources that should not have been possible to contain. The bioships, that had easily absorbed alien weapons fire, suddenly found themselves taking damage they could not adapt to. Their living hulls writhed in pain as human weapons tore through defenses that had never encountered anything like them. Direct hit, Steve reported. Their armor is not adapting to our weapons. Jake Morrison smiled grimly. That's because our weapons don't work the same way twice. All ships focus fire on the command vessel. Let's see how they like it when their coordination breaks down. The 12 human ships converged on the massive bioship at the center of the Devourer formation. They moved in patterns that made no sense, flying through spaces that should have been blocked, arriving at positions they should not have been able to reach. Commander Lisa Carter coordinated the attack from her station on the Defiance. Her fingers moved across controls with inhuman speed, calculating firing solutions that relied on intuition as much as mathematics. All ships, synchronize strike in 3, 2, 1, mark. 12 different types of impossible weapons fired, at exactly the same moment. The energy beams did not travel in straight lines. The projectiles changed course mid-flight. The viral programs rewrote themselves as they traveled through space. The Devourer command ship staggered under the combined assault. For the first time in the battle, one of their bioships showed signs of real damage. Sections of its hull went dark. Its coordination signals wavered. Ambassador Kilesh watched the tactical display with growing amazement. How are they doing? This human technology appears inferior to ours. Admiral Zekhar had no answer. The human ships were performing maneuvers that violated everything he knew about space combat. They flew through hostile fire as if it was not there. They appeared in positions that should have been impossible to reach. They fought like they were personally angry at the laws of physics. All Galactic Alliance vessels, Jake Morrison's voice, came over the communication channels. The enemy coordination is disrupted. This is your chance to press the attack. For the first time since the battle began, the alien fleets found themselves able to fight effectively. With the Devourer command structure in chaos, the bioships were fighting as individuals rather than as a coordinated swarm. The tide of battle was beginning to turn, and it was all because 12 human ships had refused to fight like civilized people. But the Devourers were far from defeated, and the hardest part of the battle was yet to come. The massive chamber of the Galactic Council Station hummed with voices from 100 different worlds. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for an emergency meeting that could decide the fate of civilized space. Admiral Zekhar of the Vorthak Empire stood at the center podium, his forearms moving as he spoke to the assembled crowd. "The Devourers have consumed another system," he announced, his translator making his clicks and hisses into words that all species could understand. "The Altair colonies are gone. 3 billion souls turned into fuel for their bioships." A wave of fear rippled through the chamber. The Devourers were not just another enemy fleet. They were something worse. Living ships that grew stronger by eating entire worlds and everyone on them. No one knew where they came from or how to stop them. Commander Veltara of the Crystalline Hegemony rose from her seat. Her body looked like it was made of living diamond, beautiful and cold. "Our combined fleets number over 3,000 ships. Surely we can mount an effective defense." 3,000 ships against an enemy that has consumed dozens of civilizations, replied Ambassador Kilesh of the Zephyrians. His blue skin seemed to glow as he spoke. "We need every advantage we can get." That was when Captain Jake Morrison stepped forward. He was human, which made him unusual in this gathering. Humans were new to galactic politics. Most species still thought of them as primitives who had barely learned to leave their own solar system. Jake was tall and lean, with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of working on ship engines. He wore a simple uniform that looked plain compared to the elaborate clothing of the alien representatives. Behind him stood Lieutenant Commander Amy Patterson, a woman with short brown hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. "The human fleet has arrived to assist in the defense," Jake said in a calm voice. Admiral Zekhar looked puzzled. "Human fleet? Our sensors show only 12 vessels in your formation." "That is correct," Jake replied. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then laughter began to spread among the alien representatives. Commander Veltara's crystalline form sparkled as she laughed. 12 ships? Against the Devourers? "Your largest vessel appears to be a heavy cruiser by our standards," Admiral Zekhar said, checking his datapad. "What do you call it?" "The UHS Defiance," Jake answered. "Our other ships are the UHS Liberty, Guardian, Ranger, Vengeance, Phoenix, Stalwart, Warrior, Falcon, and Justice." "Ancient names for ancient ships," muttered the Vorthak Admiral. "Captain Morrison, do humans not understand what we face? The Devourer fleet numbers in the tens of thousands. They have weapons that can crack planets and armor that adapts to any attack." Jake nodded slowly. "We understand the threat perfectly, Admiral. These 12 ships represent the finest crews humanity has to offer." More laughter echoed through the chamber. A representative from the Helix Confederation, a being that looked like a walking tree, spoke up. "Captain, we appreciate your courage, but 12 ships cannot make a difference in this battle." Amy Patterson stepped forward and whispered something to Jake. He listened and then addressed the gathering again. "My tactical officer reminds me that humans have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog." Ambassador Kilesh leaned forward with interest. "An interesting philosophy, Captain. But philosophy will not stop bioships that feed on living worlds." "Perhaps not," Jake said, "but determination might give us an edge." What the aliens did not know was that each human ship carried secrets, technology that came from ancient ruins, found on dead worlds, weapons that worked in ways that made no sense to normal physics, crews that had survived wars against their own artificial intelligences and learned to think in ways that no other species had needed to. On the bridge of the UHS Defiance, Commander Lisa Carter monitored the alien fleet positions. She was a small woman with red hair and quick hands that could work ship controls faster than most aliens could even see. The tactical display showed the 3,000 ships of the Galactic Alliance arranging themselves in standard defensive formations. "Predictable," she muttered to herself. Every move the aliens made followed the same patterns taught in military academies across the galaxy. They would form defensive lines, coordinate their fire, and try to stop the Devourers through superior numbers and firepower. The humans had learned long ago that sometimes the best way to win a fight was to break all the rules. Captain Morrison returned to his ship and took his place on the bridge. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. These were people who had volunteered for a mission that everyone knew was probably suicide. They had families back on Earth, dreams, and hopes for the future. But they had also sworn an oath to protect humanity and its allies. "Captain," called Lieutenant Bobby Chen from the communications station, "we're getting reports that Devourer scout ships have been spotted at the edge of the system." Jake nodded. "How long until the main fleet arrives?" "Best estimate is 6 hours, sir." 6 hours to prepare for a battle against an enemy that had never been defeated. 6 hours for 12 human ships to figure out how to survive against impossible odds. "Send a message to all human vessels," Jake ordered. "Tell them to prepare for combat operations and remind them that the galaxy is watching." Amy Patterson looked up from her station. "Sir, should we coordinate our battle plan with the alien fleets?" Jake smiled grimly. "No, Amy. Let them stick to their formations and their strategies. We'll do what humans do best. Which is? Improvise." The alien representatives in the council chamber were still discussing strategy when the first Devourer ships appeared on long-range sensors. Dark shapes that seemed to bend light around them. Bioships that pulsed with an evil life of their own. Admiral Zekhar broadcast to all ships, all vessels, prepare for standard engagement protocols, maintain formation integrity, and await orders. On the UHS Defiance, Jake Morrison looked out at the stars and thought about home. Earth was far away, but the people there were counting on him and his crews to stand between them and the darkness that was coming. "All human ships, this is Defiance Actual," he said into his communicator. "You know what we're here to do. Let's show the galaxy what humans are made of." The Devourer fleet was coming, and soon the battle would begin.